Okay, so my name is Aline Mugambi. I've been involved in cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin, for the last 26 months, to be specific. Um, my background is sales and marketing. My last job was with Airtel Kenya, where I left as the enterprise sales manager. And then that was about 5 years ago. So I decided to go into the Juakali sector. I tried a couple of businesses in the Juakali sector. My first business was bottling water. I had a brand called Q2 that didn't do quite well because, you know, once you go into any business, you get to realize the challenges. So it became a very challenging effect where I realized, you know, I have to sell loads of, water for me to make a good markup out of it. So after about a year, I had to shut down my factory and decided to move on to any other business I could do. So I went into, I've done a couple of businesses really. So I say I'm a typical hustler. Basically, you know, I'm a risk taker. I tried different things. I was importing diapers from Dubai, but of course the price wasn't competitive compared to what is in the local market. I ran a club at one point. And before I got introduced into cryptocurrency, which was in 2016, I had ventured into real estate, basically just to connect land buyers, land sellers, you know, tenants and landlords. And that one as well comes with its own challenges. And then I also tried a bit of stint in breeding dogs, you know, for security farms. I went also into rabbit farming when we had that craze in Kenya, rabbit farming and quails. Didn't do very well in it because Kenyans don't eat as many rabbits. So at that point is where I was thinking now, you know, I've tried a couple of businesses. Which other business can I do? Do I go back to employment, which I didn't want to go because I knew if I go back to employment, you know, I'll never come out of that rat race. So I decided, you know, let me try my hand in real estate. And so that's how, you know, at that point is when I was introduced into cryptocurrency. So a friend of mine who I've known for about 5 years is called Engineer Raymond Kaptich. Looked for me just to explain this whole concept of Bitcoin. And to tell you the truth, in 2016, I had never heard of Bitcoin. You know, having been in the telecommunication industry, it was total news. I didn't know what Bitcoin was. I had never heard of it. And even the few friends I asked, have you heard about Bitcoin? Nobody had heard much about Bitcoin. So he explained the whole concept of Bitcoin. And as much as he got all technical about it, because there's also a technical angle to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, I didn't get much. But the one thing that I got and decided, and why I decided to get involved, is because I understood this is the future of money. You know, whether we like it or not, whether we understand it or not, this is the future of money. This is where the world is going. And I understood, you know, we use M-Pesa, for example, or mobile money, and we don't understand from a technological point of view how it works in the background. But we're just users. And, you know, if you look at the more Kenyans are using mobile money, the M-Pesas, you know, Airtel money, and we don't understand exactly how it works, but we are users. So I say, you know, even if I don't understand Bitcoin, for sure, you know, this is where the world is going. So that's why I got involved. Now, back to your question on what Bitcoin is. I'd explain it in the most layman's language because, you know, there's so much information out there, both positive and negative. And let me just explain Bitcoin in the easiest way that Kenyans can understand what Bitcoin is. Today, most Kenyans understand what Bonga Point is. You know, today, Diana, you can take your Bonga Points, go to Naivas, go to Tuskys, go to Good Life Pharmacy, buy your drugs, and pay using Bonga Point. So in essence, Bonga Point is money. Because money is anything you can exchange goods and services for. But we've never seen a Bonga point. We don't know how it looks like. Is it red? Is it blue? You know, it's not something tangible that we've touched, but it is money. Now, that's a definition of a digital currency or a virtual currency. Now, Bitcoin is similar to Bonga point, but on a global scale. That's how I'd explain it. Bitcoin is money. No, Bitcoin is just money like Bonga Point, but on a global aspect. Now, for us to understand Bitcoin as money, we have to look at the journey of money. Money has evolved. The past of money as we knew it was barter trade. You know, that's what our forefathers were using. They were using, you know, exchanging cowrie shells, spices, cows and goats. And once in a while, you know, girls would be thrown in that mix. So that's where money evolved. It took 400 years for it to get to the present state, which is what we know in general as fiat currency. You know, the Kenya shillings, the dollar, the pound, that in general is known as fiat. And not fiat the car, But fiat is actually a Latin word that means I declare. So the government of the day declares Kenya shilling as legal tender to be used in Kenya. So all the currencies globally right now are known as fiat currencies. Now the future and where the world is going, it's towards digital currency. We are transitioning from fiat currency to digital currency. Now one of those digital currency is Bitcoin. And for your own information, we have more than 2,000 types of digital currency. Bitcoin is just one of them. However, the reason why we focus on Bitcoin is because the adoption of Bitcoin is higher globally and the value is higher. Today, if you look at the value of one Bitcoin, it's about $5,000 for a Bitcoin. I mean, when I got involved in this in 2016, one Bitcoin was only $500, which is equivalent to about 50,000 Kenya shillings. Today, the same Bitcoin in 2 years is valued at $5,000. So, there's a lot happening around the world that really pushes and dictates the value of Bitcoin to where it is today, because this is money for the people, by the people, So that's why we are really out here educating people on why they need to invest in Bitcoin, because that's the future. That is where the world is going. We are moving from these physical notes and coins and transitioning towards digital currency. So that kind of explains Bitcoin in a nutshell.
Okay, basically you have been, I don't know
Yes.
if you are mining Bitcoins?
Yes.
What is the reception here in Kenya? How are people, maybe young people?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so based on the question you've asked, so many people don't understand what mining is. Every time you say mining, people are like, what is that? Like, do we dig Bitcoin on some land? Because when you think of Bitcoin, you think of gold and diamonds. So are we digging our Bitcoins from some land? Now, let me explain, because like I said, Bitcoin is a digital currency. It's a virtual currency, right? And there are different ways you can actually get your Bitcoins. The first way is you can accept it as a mode of payment, where, if you run a hotel like the one you're in, you can request your clients to pay you in Bitcoins. That is already happening around the globe. Today, if you buy or if you fly with the Virgin Atlantic airline, you can pay for your ticket in Bitcoin. If you want to buy a car from Japan, you can use a company like BFord, and you buy and import your car and pay using Bitcoins. So Walmart, Starbucks, globally already people are accepting Bitcoin. Now locally, there's a feature that was actually aired about 2 months ago of this lady in Nyeri who was, a restaurant called Betty's Restaurant in Nyeri, where you go and eat your nyama choma and pay in Bitcoins. There's a mall called Spa on Thika Road near Riru, where they have a shop called Milano Collection. They just sell sports shoes, different labels, Adidas, Nike. You can go and buy your shoes there and pay using Bitcoin. So the adoption locally has started. So that's one way you can accumulate Bitcoins. You have a business, just tell your customers to pay you in Bitcoins, and it makes sense to be paid in Bitcoin. Because today if I buy a shoe for 3,000 Kenya shillings or 1,000 Kenya shillings, tomorrow you'll still have that 1,000 Kenya shillings. Now with Bitcoin, the value keeps going up and up, although there are of course value fluctuations. Now if I pay you in Bitcoin and the value of Bitcoin just goes up by a bit, it means your money has actually appreciated. So it makes sense, and that's why the rich guys, the Bill Gates, the Richard Branson are involved in this, and many of their businesses are already accepting Bitcoin. So that's one way you can accumulate Bitcoin. Number two way is that you can trade in Bitcoins. You're in Kenya, you're saying, I have Bitcoins. How do I translate my Bitcoins into Kenya shillings? Where do I use my Bitcoins? Now, the good news is you can convert your Bitcoins into Kenya shillings at any one point. So we have Forexes, similar to the way you have dollars, you can go to a Forex and exchange it. We also have Forexes that we call Bit exchanges. They basically trade in Bitcoin. The biggest Forex in Kenya is called BitPesa. BitPesa has been around for about 5 years now. Their head office is in Kenya. They're located at Mirage Plaza. That's where the head office is. BitPesa is one of the biggest bit exchanges in Kenya. And they went around educating people about Bitcoin, and they've been around for quite some while now. They are now operating in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Nigeria, in Ghana. They've opened the Asian market. Now, you'll be surprised, and this is public news, that, one of the biggest local shareholder of BitPesa was the ICT Cabinet Secretary, Joe Moshero. And he said that a couple of times. And he invested in BitPesa even before he was the ICT Cabinet Secretary. And, he got involved in Bitcoin because he was, among maybe the first Kenyans to really get to know about Bitcoin, and he invested in BitPesa. But, just the other day, they formed a task force that is headed by Professor Bitang Ndemo. So because, of course, conflict of interest, he had to relinquish his shareholding in BitPesa. But BitPesa is one of those exchanges. We have a new entrant into the market called Belfrix, which is a big company, an exchange globally that is big in Asia, Singapore, Malaysia. They're also operating here in Kenya. The government is aware. So, a lot is happening and many Kenyans are not even aware of what is happening. We have an app for individuals. BitPesa and Belfrix are companies. We have an app for individuals who are looking to get into the space of trading cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin. The app is called localbitcoins.com. Today, localbitcoins.com is operating in more than 247 countries globally. If you go to Uganda, you can convert your Bitcoins into Ugandan shillings by trading on local Bitcoins. So around the world, you can trade your Bitcoins in any of the countries. Now, those are some of the platforms. However, for someone looking to get into this space of cryptocurrency, I wouldn't recommend the first two because the value of Bitcoin is very volatile. The value of Bitcoin is purely determined by supply and demand. No government can intervene to regulate Bitcoin because it's not money created by the government. So the price is very volatile. I mean, last year, December, one Bitcoin was going for about 2 million Kenya shillings. Today, the same Bitcoin is 500,000 Kenya shillings. So for someone who was looking to trade and they bought the Bitcoin at 2 million, they've lost about 1.5 million Kenya shillings looking at the value today. So for someone getting into this space, unless you know your game very well, I wouldn't recommend for you. The third option I would recommend for those looking to get into this space is what we call mining. Now, that sounds a bit technical. What does mining really mean? Now, let me just explain mining in the most simplest way I can. Today, I'm sure, Diana, you have a Visa card, right? You have a Visa or a MasterCard. When you go to, say, Dari, you want to pay for your bill. You will run your card. But is your money on that Visa card? No. Your money is in a bank. All Visa does, it verifies this transaction, that you have sufficient money in your bank account to pay for your bill. That's all Visa does. And for doing that transaction, that verification of transaction, it's given a 3% commission out of it. Now, what Visa does is just purely verify transaction. They do not own a bank. All they do is verify transaction. Now, in cryptocurrency, that whole process of verifying transactions, because they don't go through a bank. So that whole process of verifying transaction is what is called mining, where we have companies around the world that are verifying transactions, right? Now, verification of transaction, they use some physical gadgets, similar to a Visa card. They use some physical machine. The current machine that they are using is called an Antminer S9. So we have a couple of companies because it's a very expensive endeavor. And, we have clips on CNN, on BBC, where they've highlighted the whole concept of mining Bitcoin and what exactly happens in mining of Bitcoin. Now, in 2009, 2010, you could try and verify transaction on your computer from the comfort of your home. Bitcoin did not have much value. It was less than $10 back then. So individuals were trying to mine Bitcoins at home, and it was possible. I have a friend who mined 5 Bitcoins just from the comfort of his home using his computer. But when he looked at his electricity bill vis-a-vis the Bitcoins he had mined, the value of this Bitcoin was too little. So he configured his entire computer and lost the 5 Bitcoins. Once you lose your Bitcoins, they're gone. But now, we were just having a conversation about 2 weeks ago, and he was saying, I actually mined 5 Bitcoins, but because I didn't see the value of, keeping these Bitcoins or continuing to mine, I stopped mining, and he lost all his 5 Bitcoins. Now, today, if he had kept his 5 Bitcoins today will be worth about 2.5 million Kenya shillings, right? But it's because back then, Bitcoin didn't have a value. Now, we have a couple of companies globally that are mining Bitcoin. This has now been left to the big boys who have the financial muscle to mine Bitcoin, basically to verify transaction. The biggest players in this are Chinese companies, because the biggest cost you incur in mining is the electricity bill. Because that Antminer machine, because of the speeds it uses to verify transaction, uses about $4 of electricity every single day. Now, you need to purchase that machine. It would cost you about 500,000 Kenya shillings to purchase that machine. And there are main two companies that sell those machines. One is called Bitfury, which is an American company, and we have Bitmain, which is a Chinese company. They no longer sell to individuals because they cannot even, supply the existing companies that are looking to buy these machines. So you as an individual buying a machine for $500,000, you need to put it on electricity 24 hours because mining happens 24 hours. Then you need to be internet connected because it needs to be online because all this verification of transaction is done online. And number 4, you're competing with the big boys who have the financial muscles. They have, millions of dollars to buy millions of those machines. So it has become a race where common mwananchi is left out of this game. Now, some of the big companies that are mining Bitcoin, one of them is BTC Top. We have Antpool, we have Slashpool, we have Bitfury. Most of these companies are privately owned companies. We cannot quite buy shareholding into these companies. There are about 17 right now, and this information is in the public domain. Because right now, unfortunately, we have too many scams that are coming up around Bitcoin, where people are being cheated. We mine Bitcoins. And you can check for yourself this information by going to a site called www.blockchain.info. And if you go to charts and mining information and go to hash rate distribution, you'll see the companies that are currently mining Bitcoins right now. Now, you could be asking, what is blockchain? Because, so many people are hearing about Bitcoin. So many people are hearing about blockchain. So what's the relationship between Bitcoin and blockchain? Now, today, Diana, you have a bank account. Your bank account runs on what we call a private ledger. I cannot access your bank details. On the flip side, Bitcoin operates on a public ledger, which is called blockchain. Now, what does that mean? If I send you Bitcoin, or if I'm buying a car from Japan, that transaction of me sending Bitcoin from my wallet to a Japanese wallet where I want to buy the car or to your wallet has to go through blockchain for verification purposes. Now, that blockchain is a public ledger that I can go in, key in, your wallet address, and I can see how those transactions are moving about. With banks, your bank account, I cannot see that. It's only the back end of the bank that can see those transactions. Now, and that's, the power of blockchain. And that's why government are all about adoption of blockchain. Now, let me give you a Kenyan scenario, which is what the president is really looking at adopting. And that's why they formed the task force that is headed by Professor Bitange Ndemo, where they're saying Kenya is ready for blockchain and digital adoption. Now, for instance, if we adopt blockchain in the Ministry of Lands, it means all the property we own in Kenya will be on blockchain. Similar to what, former, Cabinet Secretary Waiguru was trying to do with the IFMIS system, where, all transactions at NYS or government organizations go through IFMIS. But unfortunately, IFMIS can be manipulated. With blockchain, it cannot be manipulated. So what that means is, if, say, the lands registry is on blockchain, it means if I want to buy land, for example, in Karen, I want to buy land, I just need to key in, go on blockchain, check how big this land is, who is the current owner, is it on riparian, so that we eliminate the middlemen, right? So that is what governments are looking at adopting. And now blockchain and cryptocurrency runs on blockchain. So that's a relationship. All Bitcoin transactions go through blockchain. They go through blockchain. Now, blockchain is able to track the companies that are verifying this transaction, these companies that are known as miners. Right? Now, out of these companies, the 17 of them, 16 of them are privately owned. We cannot quite buy shareholding in them. And the only public mining company that is there is called BitClub Network. Right? And you can go online and confirm for yourself this information. Now, BitClub Network was started in September of 2014. Where they said, how do we make it possible for Diana, for Aline, to get involved in this whole process of verifying transaction and becoming miners? Because it's just left to the big boys who mine Bitcoin and then they can sell to the traders, the Bitpesas, and then the Bitpesas can sell to us at a markup. How do we get into the source of Bitcoin, which is mining of Bitcoin? So they said, why don't we form like a chama, a group, tyranny of numbers, what they call it. So we come together, you buy whatever number of machines you are able to purchase, invest in that, and whatever BitClub mines, we share. So that was the whole concept behind BitClub Network. Now, like I said, we have so many scams that have come along. in the same, spirit of saying we mine Bitcoin, and so many Kenyans, unfortunately, are losing their hard-earned money because of these scams. And the reason why people are losing money is because of lack of information. And that's why we are out here educating as many people that want to listen, so you don't lose your hard-earned money. You can check that information. So that basically explains mining and how, as a common mwananchi, as Aline, I can get involved in mining, because this company, BitClub Network, is open to the public. You can come and invest, buy some shares, and get involved in mining of Bitcoins.